Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Good Friday to everyone celebrating. We're back for another Dietitian Talk live. This is our monthly Dietitian Talk, as where you guessed it, we talk with our Integrative Registered Dietitians. I'm James Marin. I'm an Integrative Registered Dietitian, environmental nutritionist, and one of the co-founders of Married to Health.
I'm Dahlia Marin. I'm an integrative gut health dietitian, also one of the co-founders of Married to Health. And we're excited to be joined by just a few of the incredible dietitians on our team. We have two more dietitians on our team who couldn't join us today, but we'd love for you all to introduce yourselves to those who don't know you. Katie, please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Chacos. I am a licensed registered dietitian. I'm also pursuing my PhD in diet interventions during cancer. I focus on women's health, plant-based nutrition, and helping people through their cancer journeys.
And then I can go next. Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Sanchez. I'm also known as the Emotional RD. I am a licensed registered dietitian, and I focus on emotions, feelings, stress, gut health, and women's health.
And then there's me. I'm Damaris Hunger. I'm also licensed registered dietitian, and I am also studying naturopathic medicine, so that's my other part of me. But anyway, I work mainly with families, children, teenagers, and also plant-based nutrition.
Perfect. All right. And today's topic, kind of the topic in general is more of one of the fact of the overwhelm. We've kind of touched on this, I think, a while back, but it's the idea of kind of how are you and taking time to check in with your health journey. How are you with your health journey? How are you with your wellness journey? Is it feeling more overwhelming, or is it feeling more conducive to your health, right? Because as we've seen in our patient community, as we've seen even with our own personal journey, I can speak for myself, and then anyone else can kind of chime in, is there's times where, trying to be healthy can be a bit overwhelming, trying to really ensure we are doing everything that we're like supposed to be doing, right? Hydrating and exercising and eating healthy, eating clean, whatever you want to call it. Are we doing everything right? Are we doing everything 100%? And it can be stressful, right? Oh, I missed my workout, or oh, I went out to eat and I just feel so bloated, or maybe my IBS is coming back, and there's so many factors to this. So we really wanted to create this space and this awareness and this discussion around moving forward. How do we keep health at the forefront and definitely a priority, while balancing it and not letting it maybe consume us in a way where it becomes stressful and overwhelming and a deterrent to one's health, right? So a lot here, a lot of factors to this, and it's very important that we talk about this, I think, a little bit. So would love to just kind of get everyone's perspective. And before I do, I want to kind of introduce some stats, right? So in the US, we are the number one spender on weight loss with 78 billion. And these numbers are coming from about 2019, 2022. So we spend 78 billion annually on weight loss. Medication spending is 370 billion annually. So that's every year. And then we're the number one in medical spending. So in general, that's about $4.3 trillion annually. That's pretty crazy. This is more than the GDP, the gross domestic product of most countries. And we are just spending that on our medical systems, right? So that's all encompassing. I'm also going to include supplements. Supplements in the US, we're number one in spending on that. $30.2 billion on supplements every single year. And a lot there with supplements, whether you love supplements, you don't, or you're somewhere in the middle. We spend billions of dollars on it every year. And the US was ranked number 35 in health. So we're the number one in a lot of spending and a lot of factors, which we should be healthy, right? We're spending billions, if not, when you add them up, trillions of dollars on health, right? Why are we number 35 in health ranked globally compared to other countries, right? So it's very interesting. Would love to get everyone's thoughts, but just giving you kind of that context where we're putting all this money into it. Why are we number one? Just, yeah, feel free, anyone to chime in, or what are your guys' thoughts with that?
I'll jump in. I think, especially when it comes to kind of our capitalistic society where we're always kind of breaking things down into something that we can sell and pay for, like how gym memberships, there's yoga classes, cycling, Pilates, rock climbing, all these like luxury feeling activities that we do, even from nutrition classes and all these other things. We are sort of changing the landscape of our culture in our communities in the United States with how we view our own health. It's something that needs to be actively pursued versus something that's more innately within us, having to walk to the grocery store, meeting friends for lunch. It's something that we more so have to sort of force upon us than something naturally occurring in our days.
Yeah. Yeah, and Katie, you're speaking to kind of this larger concept, and something when we were thinking about this concept and this topic, the idea of integrative, right, nutrition. We call ourselves integrative dietitians and integrative. We practice integrative nutrition and take an integrative approach. What does that mean? That is taking these things that are feeling more and more separate, I think, with every day and every week and every year, and saying, you know what, they're actually all connected and can come together. And I think that's a good time. I want to show us a video if I can. I want to show and get everyone's reaction to this video because this video has been making its rounds. I saw it on social media. I think it's really, really cool. And it really encompasses what we're all talking about. So hopefully everyone can hear this. I'm going to share this video
because of our lifestyle and puts it on the side and offers it as a service, a package, a product, something that you can pay for that also requires additional time. So we used to live in communities, we had big families, we used to talk to people every day, all day, hunter-gatherers that sat around a fire, or people in Italy that sit for an hour and have an espresso. Now we don't do any of that. We also don't have time for it. We filter everything through a therapist. Our food is so toxic in the United States that in order to feel good, we have to take probiotics, prebiotics, minerals, vitamins. Then we have to go to the gym and rigorously work out so that we don't become inflamed and fat. Whereas other cultures have healthy food to begin with. Other cultures include things like walking in their daily activity. So it's no wonder that in order to live a healthy lifestyle in the United States, you basically need to wake up at 4 a.m. so you can fit in your workout, fit in a meditation, and probably a motivational podcast or affirmation so you can just survive the day. And then a therapist on your lunch break or after work because we're no longer having meaningful relationships. The math is not mathing. No wonder everybody is exhausted. But businesses are thriving. Do you ever notice how everybody in Italy doesn't have a therapist?
So hopefully, was everyone able to hear that and see that? Okay, it worked. Great. So that was pretty quick, but a lot there. And some of us are live reacting to that. I watched it previously. I mean, it was pretty concise and quick. And if I could, sorry, I guess, initial thoughts, she just pretty concisely and quickly went through what we just talked about, this idea that things have gotten so separate and we've created kind of these issues in our food systems, in our economics, in our families, in our communities. And now we're spending money on each individual problem trying to fix it, right? And not just time. And really, I think time and money are kind of interchangeable, right? Money is time, time is money. And so whether it's we're having to spend more time or money or both, we're then exhausted, right? We're just like flustered, exhausted, overwhelmed by that. So what did you think, Dahlia? I know that was your first time seeing. Was that a lot? Should I replay it again?
No, I actually I had seen it before. I didn't know this was the video we were going to be reacting to. I think she presents some really interesting things for people to think about. And, I think there's so much that could be said here. And I think a lot plays into the whys of everything. We're one of the newer nations, and I think that poses its own challenges where there's new infrastructure being implemented. There's new government that was implemented. There's new societal standards that were implemented. There's less family ties here because most people, almost everybody, not 100% everybody, but most everybody here is an immigrant and had to leave their family at some point, which creates its own struggles. And so I definitely see how a lot of those different struggles play into someone's well-being. You know, we see it in our own family, that it is very difficult to maintain all these things. You know, we see that we also some days are like, oh my gosh, how do we fit in all those different things when, you know, we don't necessarily have a ton of support in our community, but still have a business to run and a daughter to take care of, and most importantly, our own health to maintain. So I totally see where her frustration is coming from, and also see where some of the roots lie that kind of got us to some of these issues. But I don't know if anybody else.
So to summarize, you're
saw
saying
that.
we're a young country, we're still figuring it out. We just need more time to kind of be like a France or more Europe, which are like have a couple hundred more years on us, and then we'll get to a spot where we can kind of find a better balance.
I think so, right?
All
Those,
right.
I think a lot of those countries have been around for thousands of years, you know, and or you know, several hundreds more years than we have. And
Yeah.
I
they
also
just-
think what comes for me to mind. Oh, sorry, did I cut
Nope.
you off?
no, not
No,
at
go
all.
for it.
Go for it.
It's how the different priorities, you know, some of these European countries, their priority is not specifically, you know, to work forever. They appreciate life, you know, life quality with family, and they take care of, you know, when people is pregnant, they actually like allow and allot the time for the mom and the dad and the baby to be together. It's like, yes, it's part of the country to, you know, have like an economy and all of these things, but I think their priorities are not specifically just work, which I think the US has been built, which it has its, you know, pros and cons, but again, it's just like that all or nothing mentality and how we tend to go to the extremes. So it's just finding that balance of, okay, well, perhaps not everything is work, but perhaps it could be a little a combination of both, a more integrative way of like applying a little bit of every single part of our lives.
So kind of that whole concept. So Laura's coming from work-life balance, balancing it, not being so, not that like hustle culture that we've seen really get popularized, especially in this last, I would say last like 5 to 7 years, like the Gary V, not to throw Gary V under the bus, but like kind of the hustle. You should be hustling day and night,
Have your
make
9 to 5
millions.
and your side hustle and
Yeah,
your
side
other
hustle
hustle.
and work, right? So like totally.
Also,
Yeah,
it's
I will
like
also say,
yeah, this society is conducive of it, you know. It's like we're constantly, it's like we really have to put an effort to go to the gym because we are into that 9 to 5 work. So now we actually have to think about it. Before it was just like, okay, well, I have to walk to the grocery store, or because they have like the accessibility in the cities, it's a little bit more connected, I can just take the bus and I walk in between, or I can, or they have amazing roads for the bikes.
Yeah.
So it's
or
just like,
manual labor jobs.
sorry, Katie.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Damaris,
Go
go
ahead,
for it.
Damaris.
I'll choose Damaris.
I also totally understand like where the video is coming from and all of us. I also grew up in Europe, so I understand that kind of side of the culture. And I also have Latino family, which is totally the opposite, like socially. But just understanding that maybe our values are a bit off sometimes, and just like maybe where's our focus at in the moment. Like in the early years, it's like, okay, let me provide, and then afterwards, it's like, okay, now let me enjoy. It's like a work hard, play hard, which I have said before, like work hard, play hard. It's definitely a big thing. But then finding out, oh well, the work hard exhausted me so much, I can't play hard anymore. And then I don't have time to play hard with my family because I've just worked hard, which is really interesting. And just like figuring out where's that point where it's not too much, but you also don't feel like you're missing it. Yeah, and things come naturally. Like I remember growing up and people would go to the forest, like it's common to walk. And then I moved to the States and I went for a walk and people would stop and roll their windows down and say, "Are you guys okay? Like, do you need a ride home?" Which is really lovely, like really kind, but like some things are not normal anymore. And it's led to a point of where we are reactive instead of proactive. So yeah, I mean, definitely comes down to values in many ways, and then just figuring out like, oh, well, where's that balance in between, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that. They were like, are you, did your car stall and do you need a ride?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this thing with your body?
Why are you moving your legs?
But that's so
Exactly.
interesting that you and Laura both have that perspective from living abroad and not
Mhm.
necessarily always being in the United States and growing up in the United States, because you have very much experienced that culture and then come here and probably have been quite surprised, as this other woman seems to
Mhm.
be surprised with just some of the aspects of our culture. And
And mind you, I love it here too. I love that we have the opportunity to choose what we want to do with our life. Like there's so many beautiful things about our culture too.
yeah.
It's just that it's finding the middle ground. It's going from one extreme to the other and then finding out, oh, where do I sit? Where do I land?
Yes.
Katie, what has been your experience with what the commentary was and what the video presented?
Yeah, kind of building off of what everybody has said with how our country is relatively new. There's Italy and the Mediterranean region and in Europe, which oftentimes gets brought up typically as the main region when we talk about sort of like idealism around food and lifestyle. But there are all these other cultures like Asia and the diversity within Asian culture alone, within the Hispanic and Latino culture alone, and the idea of going back to your roots into some of these cultural foods that often when people come to the United States, either they're not able to have access to those foods or they just adopt more of an American pattern of eating, and then they end up with American diseases. Whereas if their family back home in a different country may not have those issues. So I just find it interesting that a lot of times, even as dietitians, where we're all primarily white women, will often kind of disregard some of those cultural foods, whereas those are actually what we should kind of be going back to.
Yeah. When you were saying that, I thought of Costa Rica, like the Costa Rican, like Pura Vida. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, like, I mean, that's like the country motto, which is cool. Like to just this motto of just like chill life, or however, I mean, pure life, like just kind of chill, be with your family, walk places. And then it's very relaxed there. It reminds me of Mexico, Costa Rica, of just like, hey, it'll get done when it gets done. Like, what are you in such a rush for? Just chill, like be with your family, go by the beach. Yeah, there's work, and we're believers in work and work ethic and working hard, but also that balance of like live your life and enjoy your life. And yeah, there is that paradox for sure.
And I feel like it's interesting because I think here in the States, I almost feel like you can find a little bit of that. You can find the hustle. Like there's such a contrast if you contrast somewhere like a blue zone, Costa Rica or Sardinia, Italy, with, let's say,
New York or something.
yeah, New York or,
LA.
Japan or, other very developed areas. I mean, of course, Okinawa is also a blue zone, but, other areas in Japan where hustle culture is also a thing. Suicide rates are high. People work 40, 60, 80 hours a week, and they are disconnected from their community. And I really feel like that's probably step one to really, that's how people tiptoe into all the rest of these issues, because when you disconnect with your community, then like Katie mentioned, you disconnect with your cultural foods. You disconnect with people who can support you mentally, physically, emotionally. You're more likely to be in community and want to move your bodies together, stay healthy together because you care for one another. When you're very much in this dog eat dog society, it's like, who's going to motivate me to take care of myself? If I'm only motivated by my finances for now, that's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about my cardiovascular health, my metabolic health, my mental health until I have to be, because it confronts me straight in my face. So I think it's so interesting to just really kind of take that global picture. And, certainly we see it here in the United States. Those stats that James shared were shocking. I don't think we're alone in this, because I think other societies who are also very advanced, which is so great, also see the drawbacks with that. And, I think that's very much of like, you can't have your cake and eat it too all the time. We have this very mental and technological advance, and then physically and emotionally, we're not there yet. And so it catches up to us.
Yeah. What comes to mind? Oh, James.
No, go ahead.
With this conversation was, when I came here, it's like it was all about convenience. So, which made it, for me, I loved it, because, I could go to the store and I can get all of these, chia seeds, maca, spirulina, all of these, and then I go back to Colombia and I'm like, I can't even find sweet potato. I have to go because it's not something that we used to grow. Now it's changed with the time. But then I go back and now I don't think I can go. Now I think it's changed. But before, when I would go back and be like, okay, I need Amazon, just like next day delivery for whatever I forgot. Well, no, that's not a possibility. So it's like, it's a love-hate relationship. But also, I don't know if you've heard of our brains are constantly trying to find ways to save for energy. So when we have these solutions with technology of like, well, you know what, let me take over that. So then the brain is like, well, why do I have to even do the work, right? So then we get into a place of like, well, I have all this convenient stuff like deliveries, Dash Door, Uber Eats. Like I basically, if I could just stay at home, like I could, because now everything around me, it's conducive of like it's so convenient that it's like my body is like, well, I don't need to do any work really. I can basically wake up, be sitting, and just get everything brought to me without moving. So beautiful in a way, but then again, we have to think with a lot of effort and conscious that, okay, this is happening. I need to move, because otherwise my health is just gonna, deteriorate. And I think that's what we're seeing. It's just, I think, like you said, it's new. And I think we're still trying to figure out all of these advancements, all of this technology, all of this AI, and just, okay, whoa, how do we bring all of this humanity back, these feelings, connecting our mind, body, all of that. But it has to be with effort and consciousness.
I love that we're having this discussion, because it almost like it's not an automatic thing that people realize this. Sometimes you have to like realize it. Sometimes you're confronted with something, you just take a step back and you're like, oh, is there something in my life that this is just too much at once? So I just love that we're having this discussion. Just it's proactive discussion, and there are things that we need to change for sure. But yeah, I love that.
I love it too. And it brings up, someone's asking the question that I think is on everyone's mind who's listening right now. What are some things that you do personally to balance work, life, yet still prioritize your health? So I'd love to hear from all of you, because we're all living this reality as well. It's not unique to our patients. It's not unique to the woman who created this video. We are all living this reality here. I would love to hear from you all what you have done to really help try to find the balance. I think we're all always trying to look for it. And sometimes we feel more balanced than others, but I'd love to hear what you have kind of incorporated into your life to help you bridge that gap, or, kind of make sure the scales don't tip. Whoever wants to share first, please feel free if you have anything that comes to your mind.
I have a few things even.
Love it.
So for me, I think first thing in the morning is doing something for myself. And it doesn't have to be hours. It could be as simple as slowing down when I'm opening my eyes, just like something consciously with awareness that I have all my attention, even if it's 5 minutes, to just tend for me, like even if it's putting my skincare in the morning, or if just going to the bathroom, or just having a little like shake, or a little bit of a still moment before I even start giving out, That's like my rule. It's like I want to give to myself first before I even give out to the world, because how can I give to the world if I haven't filled my own cup in the first place? And then what I like to do is, sometimes our mind gets all of these wonderful ideas and all of these things that we get from our environment, that it just gets overwhelmed. And what I like to do is like, okay, well, put it into paper, because when it lives up here, it just feels like a little big cloud, like a storm, and it just feels heavy and overwhelming. And when I put it down into the paper, it just looks like, okay, more doable, and then prioritizing, because you will always find something to do, because there's just so much you can do. So prioritizing. So I literally just like write down and just focus on maybe 2 or 3 things in the day. And the third one that I would say is like literally putting it into the calendar. You know, if it's not in the calendar, I think what I've experienced is that I will override it, because even if I want to take the break, and if it's not in the schedule, it's probably not as important, so I'm not going to be committed, so I'm going to override it. But if I have it in my calendar and I'm taking at least 2 minutes to just look into the window, I don't even have to do anything, but just take a little break, I'll put it in the calendar and just try to manage that and sprinkle it during the day.
Great tips.
I love that. So it sounds like, Laura, you're taking more of like an organization and logical flow to things, right? And I feel that I'm very like in my mind logical, but also some like emotional and taking that time in the morning. But I love that, like getting it out, putting it on paper, prioritize, organize, and just kind of structure it a little bit more, which is great.
Sometimes it's just like feeling, sometimes I don't feel motivated to do anything. And sometimes my body just needs to rest.
Yeah.
Then if my mind is telling me you're not being productive, just start doing it or whatever, like you're falling behind. And it's just like really like putting my hands into the heart, even like just like, I know, I hear you, but I just need 10 minutes and then we get into that again.
Love that.
For
Anyone
me,
else?
Yeah, for me, I think it's interesting that you mentioned like personally being okay, but for me, it's also being connected. And I think that that's part of what the video was, like making time to see friends and making time to see these things. And for me, there are parts in the week where that is a non-negotiable. Like every evening, my family or the people I live with come together and we have some time, we chat, we read something together. And then the things that we would like to do that are healthy, doing it with others just brings joy to it, I think. And so when I'm out for a walk, I will invite friends to come or call my family while I'm doing it. And it's just, it doesn't become a chore. Like these things are not separated, but they become part of our social interactions, which I really enjoy because we are social beings. A lot of us need alone time too, like need decompression time. But I think we do look for that, some kind of connection. And we connect over food, we connect over movement, we connect over conversation. And those are important things too. And just remembering that sitting down with the family to eat is a great way to connect and like really incorporate healthy eating and healthy relationships and many different things at once, where you're not dedicating like, oh, I'm just going to talk. Oh, I'm going to eat healthy. No, I'm just doing it at the same time. So those are some things for me for sure. And just, I live far from family right now, but just making sure I call them every chance I get and things like that, where, oh, let's drive together. Like, let's talk while we're driving so that I'm getting socially connected as I'm driving or something like that, bringing people into these healthy habits, I think just helps make them happier and more meaningful. Yeah.
Love that.
Love it. Katie, anything to add or thoughts?
Yeah. With this conversation about carving out time, from Laura talking about her calendar to kind of like the social aspect and really making sure there's time for that. For me, especially as a dietitian and as a student in grad school, things are very stressful, and there's often times where I'm working from, sun up to sundown and late nights. But for me, I've noticed kind of thinking backwards as to what is the root cause of whatever I'm struggling with, which as integrative dietitians is sort of our goal with our patients too, right? And for me, I have over the years realized that my physical health is very much tied to my mental health. So making mental health a priority for me and carving out time where I see my healthcare professional, even though in that video they mentioned like unloading on therapists, but they have their place. And talking with my husband and kind of connecting that way at a deeper level really helps me to be able to feel good and have the energy to then go and make that breakfast or go on a walk. So kind of from a other perspective, thinking back at what is the biggest trigger in my life right now and how can I work on that specifically, and other things will kind of fall into place.
Love that. That's so important. Yeah. That's a whole nother layer of relationships, and oh my gosh, that connection and making time for another, and very important. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I think it's always reconnecting with your why. Because if you're at a point in life where life feels like a chore, you do want to go back and, kind of like Katie was saying, root cause oriented, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Does this still align with my values and my goals at this time? Or do I feel like I'm no longer that person who maybe set out on this journey and that's why it's feeling so exhausting to me? Not to say we don't all get fatigued. And even when we're doing things that we love and working on our passion projects, that we won't have days that are stressful or days that are full or days where we do feel very fatigued. But if that becomes the norm in your life, then you want to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it for, financial gain? Is it for accolades? Is it for whatever? And is that not filling my cup, right? If it means that my health and my well-being, my mental and emotional well-being and my relationships are suffering, and that's really what I'm craving. And if you do identify that, then, something James and I started saying a couple of years ago was really asking yourself, like, is it a hell yeah or a hell no, right? Because I think we have learned, at least I have, right? I'm Arab. I come from a culture that's very guilt driven. And I often used to say, oh, I feel bad, I'll just do it. And that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be doing things because I feel bad not doing them. I want to do things because
Obligation.
They make me feel amazing and they are in line and oriented with my goals and with who I want to be and the person that makes me feel my best mentally, physically, emotionally, because then I can bring that best to other people as well. And so, I think it's so important whenever that is what's coming up of like, I just, want to run away. Or if one more person asks me one more thing, I'm just going to scream. It's asking, where do you need better boundaries? And where do you need to check in with yourself and really ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Have I always? Is this something that I used to love and look forward to? And now it's something I resent and can't stand. So I think for me, it is just checking in with that of my purpose and my passion and and kind of starting my morning, like Laura was also mentioning, of my what grounds me and something for me and, a spiritual practice. So that way I'm just starting my morning off that way.
Yeah. If I can add, and something that Laura said, but then what I was thinking about too is the idea of instant gratification, right? And it's really this idea that if I had my way based on my own understanding, I would be eating Oreos and I would always want, this is what I was doing as a child. I was eating Pop-Tarts and really these foods that boosted my endorphins and made me feel good. And it was that instant gratification. I want food, I'm going to eat it now. And as much as I want dessert, I want ice cream, chocolate milk, etc. And then basically extrapolate that as I got older to life, right? I want money, I want power, I want. That's my own understanding. For me, in my own journey, has been who is a higher conscious than me? Whose other understanding can I lean on and glean from Because if I did my own human understanding, I'd be a gluttonous, unethical creature of sorts in a way. That's at least for me, right? At least what I think. And we do kind of see that in this world, right? Extreme greed, which then can lead to bad policies, which then can lead to bad outcomes. And we follow this rabbit hole down, right? Where there are men and women out there that have hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions, even trillions of dollars of wealth that they've amassed. And it's like, wow, very interesting. What are they doing with all that power, right? So anyway, that rabbit hole can go very deep. So my point being is, as I've gotten healthier in different areas, where at first I thought, like, let me get healthier physically and then nutritionally and then mentally, one big one for me has been spiritually, really taking it back spiritually and plugging in spiritually, and then seeing how that rippled through my family, through me, through any of the projects I work on, whether that's Married to Health and beyond, and feeling that kind of change and go, whoa, if when I lean on a higher understanding, at least for me, it's a whole nother game changer, right? Because my own understanding is I just want to feel good and do what feels good for me. When it's a higher conscious, I want to do it what feels good and is good for the entire community, whatever that is, whether that's my home community, my city, the world, and beyond. And how is what I'm doing today going to have that ripple effect to as many people as possible, right? And it really starts with first you, right? I'm not saying you got to go change the world tomorrow, but it starts with you. And then slowly and surely over time, as you develop that consciousness and that strength that you're building for yourself, it starts to have a massive ripple effect, right? So I know we can that's a whole nother rabbit hole, but yeah, that's what I'm feeling. But this is all wonderful feedback and tips. And I think there's so much here of just being organized and taking time for yourself and filling your cup and understanding a bit more of yourself and your relationships and all of this, all of these things, one of these things, two of these things is a great start to then honing back in and kind of taking a breath. I always say sometimes it feels like we're always exhaling, right? Like that's kind of just you're giving and doing so much. You're just like, but when do you inhale? Like, okay, like take an inhale for yourself, right? And it's a balance of both. We can't just exhale or we'll die. We need to do both equally. Inhale and exhale, and it's finding your balance with that. So
yeah, and if I could say one last thing that I'll share with my patients or I'll share with others is just because something is good, it doesn't mean it's always good for you in that moment. So, I think when people feel like, oh, this is such a good opportunity, I have to take it and I have to do that. And these are good things. Therapy's good and working out is good and nutrition's good. If it's not going to all feel balanced for you, maybe all of those aren't good things for you at this time. So really kind of ease into them and see which one is manageable for you within your time budget, your financial budget, your emotional budget, and then see where you can add. You can always layer onto your onion.
I love that. And I think like part of that too is like taking a moment to reflect. And my dad like always encouraged me, like as we end the day, just like take a look at your day. Like what were you very grateful for? What were you very satisfied with? What part in your day were you like missing? And just like taking a moment to really take time. Oh, how can I put these puzzle pieces back together where it isn't so much effort? I think that's practice that we need to do more of, to just take time, reflect, and see where am I at, what things can change.
yeah,
Love that.
I love it.
Anything else? We'd love to hear from Laura, Katie, any other thoughts that you have on this subject, on what you hear from your patients and how you're feeling on anything from this topic?
I think from a disease perspective or patients that are going through things that we're not just talking about general health and nutrition, but what happens if somebody has diabetes or they're living with cancer or something like that. There's a lot of added anxiety, health anxiety and stress. And I think, Jalia, what you mentioned, even in those populations, it's really thinking back to what do I have power over right in this moment? Sometimes nutrition might not be that first step. It might be the second step or the third step, or maybe it is the first step, but kind of really going back to what is the easiest thing I can do in this moment that will help me towards those, either my treatment plan or my goals, anything like that.
Love that.
I have something to add. It would be, it's okay to have a day where nothing is going how it should be. Like, I think we're also human. We're also all living this human experience. And why not enjoy in some distraction? That's part of the fun too, you know? It's not like you have to be mindful and aware and conscious 24/7 forever the rest of your life, because then you're taking that all in extreme again, even if it's healthy, you know. But just like anything in extremes, you know, too much water can be very harmful. Too much water or too much vitamin D, very harmful too. So too much or too little, I think, has their side effects. And just a lot of compassion, love, grace, kindness towards yourself at the end, because you're in this journey, you're just doing the best that you can every day. And just really watch that little voice that sometimes comes in and just be like, you're not doing this right, or like, you know, putting yourself down even deeper just because you didn't have that broccoli that you wanted to have and instead you had pizza, or whatever it may be. It's just like really creating this relationship with this little voice and just be like, it's the best that I can do for myself today, and I'm just gonna enjoy it with my full awareness. I might as well.
Yes. So it sounds like we're all in agreement of connecting with yourself again is so, so, so important. Being realistic with your personal expectations, resources. And I think it is interesting where we are in this age of social media, and we tend to want to compare ourselves to that perfect 1 second picture that we saw of someone's day without knowing context behind it. And so it is maybe sometimes just quieting that noise and saying, that's beautiful. I'm glad, you know, it looks like that person is living whatever I'm perceiving. And you know, if that's a future goal that I have, wonderful. I hope that I can get there. And if I can't, I will still enjoy my lived experience, and I will still be grateful for where I am and what I'm doing and how I'm loving and nourishing and supporting myself, and reminding ourselves it's seldom what we are seeing that is in reality, right? Looks can be deceiving, and that includes social media, where you know, we're all putting, or a lot of people are putting forward their best photo of the day, their most beautiful food picture, filtered picture, whatever it is. And it's not necessarily reality. Because if you are constantly playing that comparison game, it will drive you mad, and it will drive you to feeling like you have to, like she said, wake up at 4 a.m. and, you know, go to these extremes to fit it all in. So thank you all for participating in this discussion and sharing your best tools of you staying balanced. And if they can be helpful to other people, wonderful. If not, we encourage everyone here who's listening, find your tools, find your why, find your community, find your people, find your purpose, and just keep that as kind of your Northern Star. So that way, whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, whenever you're feeling like you're going crazy, you can go back to that and really help it navigate you.
Well, down below is more links, guys. If you want to meet with any of the dietitians, learn more about them, click down below. You can go to marytouth.com. This is happening every single month, so make sure you subscribe, and you can comment down below on topics you want us to discuss. You can ask questions live. And then in a couple weeks, we're doing our Good Gut Live. We're going to be talking about the elemental diet. So for those that are curious about the elemental diet, and we'll be talking about that. And so happy Friday, everybody. Happy Good Friday for those. And Passover for those.
You're living for this weekend.
Yes. And so, yeah, as always, heal with each meal. We'll see you next time. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all. Bye.